So in this video, I'll be doing a budget upgrading and modding to my keyboard, and this keyboard I'm using is actually the Ajazz K685T. If you're interested in that keyboard, you can check out my previous video on it. It's around 160 ringgit. It's a really cheap board, so I think that it's suitable that we do a very budget upgrading and modding on this keyboard. So this being a budget modding slash upgrading video, I'll be going through the basics like adding foam into the case, adding foam to the plate, and switching out your switches, stabilizers, and keycaps. So without further ado, let's get this video started. So this right here is the Ajazz K685T, and of course the first thing I'm going to do is remove all of the keycaps and switches on this keyboard. So after that is done, we will be moving on to the stabilizers. All I will be doing is removing all of the stock stabilizers and then replacing them with the new cherry plate mounted stabilizers, which I have already wholly modded. Then we can dismantle the whole thing by unscrewing the whole case and the plate. So when opening up the case, I actually realized that the PCB and the plate are actually not screwed in together. There is one screw you have to remove, but the other points are actually held together with this plastic bit. So all you have to do is push really hard on the plastic bit to make it pop out from the PCB and the plate. So after doing all of that, we can now start modding the keyboard. As we can see, the case right here is quite hollow. It only houses the battery. All I'll be doing is adding in some foam into here to make it sound better and dampen off the typing noise so it won't be that hollow. Then we'll put some plate foam into the plate and the foam right here to make it again sound much better than the stock ones. Let's do it right now. I will be using some Poron Foam in the case, and this Poron Foam only cost me 15 ringgit on Shopee. So I just got done putting in some Poron Foam into the case. One thing when you want to do when you put in foam is make sure you have all the standoffs cut out or actually aligned, so you can make sure all of the things will screw back into place. And you want to make sure any holes you make, like for the power on switch, can actually fit the actual switch, so you won't have any problems down the line. And make sure of course every wiring can pass through the foam. So with this now done, I can move on to the plate and put everything on there, and then we can start to reassemble everything. So these cherry stabilizers right here are actually from Shopee, and I got them from Click and Clack. They cost around 35 ringgit for the set. So the platform I'm using is actually from Shopee as well, and it costs around 20 ringgit for this pre-cut plate foam. So I just actually reassembled everything and turned it on. Everything seems to be working just fine and everything fits quite nicely. The new steps, the new foam in the case and plate really will improve this keyboard sound. So now let's move on to the switches and the keycaps. For the switches of this budget keyboard build, I'll be using a really budget switch which I really love. It's the KTT Kang white linear switch. So this switch only costs around 80 cents to 1 ringgit per piece, and for them being looped is around 1 ringgit and 50 cents. This is considered a really budget switch in the market right now. And the version I have right here is the loop version, so they'll be sounding really nicely, but you can just go for the stock switches if you don't want to spend that much. And on the back of this switch, you can actually see that it is 3-pin, and on the top we have a cutout for the RGB light, and this switch will definitely fit on our PCB because our PCB only supports 3-pin switches and they have protruding RGB LEDs. So this switch has an actuation force of 45 grams and it bottoms out at 55 grams. This is pretty decent and middle of the range. I really like it. And of course it's RGB friendly because it's actually transparent and all the RGB will shine through it pretty nicely. So I just got done putting in all of the switches and this is what it looks like. It looks really awesome, especially with the RGB on because of the transparent case of these switches. It was kind of hard putting in these switches because the plate was actually not really cut well, but this being a budget build, that is actually expected. Now let's move on to the next part. Now time for the keycaps for this build. So again, I went for a really budget option. These keycaps right here only cost me 70 ringgit and it comes with 122 pieces. So these are some die-cut PBT cherry profile keycaps. They look pretty awesome and they have a kind of retro look to them, and they come with Russian legends. pretty interesting to me, but I think that these budget switches will definitely make this keyboard look and sound better, especially will fit the white aesthetic of the keyboard. So them being budget switches, of course it came in a bag, and I think that overall they look pretty awesome. Now let's put them onto the keyboard. So this is what it looks like with all of the keycaps installed. They were a breeze to install and they look awesome. I believe like this Russian Legends does give it a little bit of flavor, but honestly it looks pretty awesome in this white keyboard with actually this retro look. So now with that all out of the way, we can now do a sound comparison between the stock keyboard and the modded keyboard and see what you guys think. So that is it for this budget modding and upgrading video. I honestly had a great time upgrading this Ajazz K685T. It's definitely a kind of weird keyboard to upgrade because of the things inside like the PCB and other stuff. But honestly it turned out quite nice. During the typing sound test, I would say that it sounded better, much better than the stock, but it doesn't sound as great as other budget mods out there. I would say that the top row does sound really nice with those KTT Kang white switches, and everything in this mod actually totaled up to only around 200 ringgit or $50 US, so that is quite cheap. And if you're interested in anything used in this video, it will be linked down in the description below. So I also strongly encourage everyone to try and mod their keyboards in your own way. This is how I did it and it sounded quite okay at the end, but there's actually a lot more ways to do it. You can check out my channel or other people's channel if you're into budget modding your keyboard. So that is it for this video guys. Leave a like on this video if you liked it, dislike this video if you didn't like it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I have even more content coming very soon, and as always, thanks for watching. Goodbye guys.